Hey, what's going on, Salt Strong? It's Justin, and this review is going to be about the Z-Man Pro ShroomZ Ned Rig Jigheads. The time is now. We are finally addressing Ned rigs and what is their place in inshore saltwater applications. In this review, we're going to talk about all the features of the hook itself by Z-Man. We're going to talk about the head design, the tie point location, the wire and size gauge of the hook, the little hook keeper, what types of lures go well on a Ned rig approach, and when you might want to use them in different scenarios. So if you're anything like me and you've heard of the Ned rig before, you might have thought originally that the Ned rig was just a fancy bass technique for freshwater guys. Let's give a little bit of backstory to this. The Ned rig was designed or conceptualized by a guy named Ned Cady. He's a popular outdoor writer, and this technique is formally regarded as the Midwest finesse technique. The application is to be able to use really light, small, short, soft plastic lures like little worms and little creature baits to be able to entice picky fish, whether you're targeting them suspended in a little bit deeper water or you're targeting heavily pressured fish and you're downsizing your presentation. This is really the intended application for that approach. So diving right into the specs, the Z-Man Pro ShroomZ Ned Rig Jigheads, they come 4 to a pack, and they have them in a lot of different weight sizes. As light as 1/10 of an ounce, which is very finesse, and all the way down to 1/3 of an ounce. Now, for most inshore applications, because again, this is a finesse technique, I really think the sweet range is between that 1/10 ounce to the 1/4 ounce. I'm sure you could use the 1/3 ounce if you're fishing a little bit deeper water in excess of 7 or 8 feet and there's some ripping current. But one of the benefits of using these Ned heads is to have a controlled descend on your presentation. So lighter, smaller, soft plastics, and always thinking going as lightweight as you can possibly get away with, depending on the conditions, is going to allow you to present this type of offering as intended, as it was made. So you're going to want that slower descend or that slower fall. So where, in let's say 5 to 7 feet of water around a dock and, fast moving current, you might want to use a 3/8 ounce with a regular jig head and a soft plastic. But if you're going to take this Ned rig approach that, again, really shines when you're targeting picky or pressured fish, especially ones that are suspended, dropping down to that 1/4 ounce size or lighter if you can get away with it, might end up getting you that bite on those tough days. The hook that Z-Man went with on these Pro ShroomZ is a 2/0 size, and it's a little more robust than their finesse counterparts. They do make the finesse ShroomZ and the power finesse ShroomZ that are a little bit shorter shank or longer shank, and they have a thinner gauge wire. For us saltwater guys, I think you're going to have that security of using these Pro ShroomZ that are a little more robust. So if you do hook into a big snook like I did here recently, you're not going to worry about straightening these out. Another cool feature you can see here is the keeper attachment that they put on the shank of this hook. Little bit different than the barbed keepers that are on some of the other Z-Man Trout eyes and other popular saltwater jig heads. This little keeper right here is going to be great for using on Elastec or TPE, really stretchy plastic, soft plastics, kind of like our power prawn. This keeper here is just going to help make sure that it's got like a little, not a hook, but kind of like a bent piece of wire to where that soft plastic's not going to work its way down the shank as easily. But it's not going to be as cumbersome as the really big barbs that are on a traditional jig head, where if you take an Elastec, you got to kind of like pull it up over top of these barbs. This is going to be a lot easier to work with and will still keep your soft plastic very secure. So what we're going to talk about next are the soft plastic lure recommendations. And if you notice, this jig head standing up on its own, I did not manually manipulate this jig head to do that. It caught my skin and I just kind of threw it off my hand, and it ending up in this position right here, which I thought was really cool. And this is the biggest feature of this type of jig head, is that head design. If I can get this to focus real quick, this head design is this, as Z-Man would call it, like a mushroom head, or some companies call it this block head. It's got a flat face to it. And although these work well with traditional plastisol type plastics, like our Slam Shady 2.0 or the Gold Digger or Fred, we're going to talk about that in a minute, these excel when you're using them with a TPE type of plastic or something that's very buoyant like Z-Man Elastec. So a good example is, I'm going to take our Power Prawn Junior here. This guy's seen some better days. I've used him quite a bit, but he's caught me a lot of fish. So this Power Prawn Junior pairs very well with the Pro ShroomZ Jighead, this 2/0 hook. If I can thread this on nice and straight real quick for you guys and show you what I'm talking about. There we go. This Pro ShroomZ Jighead, when paired with either our Power Prawn Junior or let's say like a Z-Man 3-inch Minnow Z or the Easy Shrimp, the Slam Shady color, these little 3-inch soft plastics, very short, very small, very finesse application, matched with this type of jig head, when you're going to bounce this on the bottom, when this is at rest, because the material is very buoyant, it's going to stand straight up, which is awesome. I mean, talk about teasing a fish, whether you're fishing deep water, shallow water, and having this tail do all the work, or the tail here on the Easy Shrimp. The fact that this jig head allows your soft plastic, your presentation, to stand straight up and down is awesome. I think that is just going to be a much different approach than, let's say, a football head that might keep it at, say, a 30 or 45 degree angle, or a trout eye jig head that's really designed for swimming soft plastics, or, you know, just quickly bouncing bottom, but not so much getting it to stand straight up and down. I thought that was really cool. So like I mentioned earlier, the Pro ShroomZ Jighead will pair very well with our custom soft plastics in that 3-inch paddle tail size. So Slam Shady 2.0, the Gold Digger, and Fred, Foolin' Redfish Every Day, this is a great matchup. Now, I know the head design of these Pro ShroomZ Jigheads, this blockhead style, isn't as, what's the word for it? I don't want to say hydrodynamic or swim friendly as a Trout Eye or Redfish Eye by Z-Man. Those jig heads have a little more of a sharp point to the head and they'll swim through the water a little easier. You can still double duty with this and swim these no problem. So I'm just going to rig this guy straight on because I did it earlier and it looked really good. So I might just have that ready to go for the future. So you can still swim a paddle tail with these blunt style heads. And because they're so small and finesse, you probably aren't even going to really notice all that much resistance when you're pulling it through the water. But if you looked closely here in the background, this little guy right here, this Gold Digger in particular, just popping the tail off, and you can do this with any of these soft plastics. The Ned rig approach has been popularly adapted to the Z-Man TRDs, which are great. They're like a little 3 or 4 inch Cinco, like a little stick bait type of approach. And because they're made out of that elastic, they do stand up straight well. But this is a quick alternative that you guys can do in a pinch, pun intended. You can knock the tail off of a Gold Digger or a Slam Shady 2.0 or the Fred. And if you're going to be fishing over sand or mud and you're fishing shallow and you want to just make contact with the bottom and bounce this to make it look like a marine worm on those super cold days, that's going to get it done. We can't talk about how understatedly deadly this is going to be. I actually ended up super gluing this one on there because I felt so confident that this is going to be a great technique if I'm pitching at really picky fish in shallow water and I want something that looks like a little marine worm or just something that's got some contrast and bouncing around on the sand. I felt so confident with this setup that I committed it to that jig head. So I'm going to be looking forward to trying this out in future situations where I've got some clear enough water and I can sight fish. But guys, if you want to go from slow rolling a paddle tail to bouncing around a TRD or just a little Ned rig stick bait alternative, this would be a great mix-up, and you won't have to worry about changing out to a different soft plastic if you just want to nip off the tail and keep on going. So if you're a saltwater guy watching this and you're scratching your head wondering, why would I want to use a dinky little freshwater rig to target redfish and snook and some beastie other inshore fish? I used to be in the same boat, guys. I really thought this was just a freshwater technique and just a fad. And honestly, we have a couple of our insider members, Pat Ogletree and Matt Lanier, recently have been using this and have been doing really well on it. And admittedly, I've popped it on a couple different soft plastics lately. And as you can see from these video clips, I've caught some really nice snook bouncing around little 10th ounce and 6th ounce Ned head rigs, these pro shrooms, on a couple different soft plastics, using a little mirror lure, Little John chop down, and using the Z-Man Easy Shrimp in Slam Shady Color actually helped me catch one of my biggest snook on artificial back in the backcountry here. So there you have it. This is the Z-Man Pro Shrooms Ned Rig Jig Heads. If you guys have used a Ned Rig approach before for inshore saltwater fishing and you've done well with it, leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear everybody's thoughts. This is still a relatively new technique, all things considered, for inshore fishing. It's gained a lot of popularity in the past couple of years, and I've been impressed in a short period of time just using this on a couple recent trips. So leave all comments and questions down below, guys. And if you're new to Salt Strong, just know that we're the best inshore fishing club in America that teaches you how to catch more redfish, sea trout, snook, flounder. We offer awesome discounts on any inshore tackle you need, and it's a great place to meet a lot of new cool friends. So if this is for you, head on over to saltstrong.com and we will see you in the Insider family soon.